Come on. Do I sound like I'm joking? Do I sound like I'm playing? When you look into my eyes, you understand what I'm saying? Let me say it to you slowly, and it may sound scandalous. I don't think that you can handle this.
All right. Once again, we are on. I am the Mojo King. He is the great Donnie Oooh, and we are Hidden Gems Football. How are you doing today, Donnie Oooh?
I've been better, Mo. I've been better. I swear. We've been trying for like 90 minutes because I'm having technical issues on my end. So if the picture looks a little bit weird, it's because it's been a weird last 90 minutes. But besides that, I'm doing great.
Well, I decided not to shave until your laptop start working right, and that's the reason I have a full beard now. So, all right. All right. Before I get into anything, let me quickly say thank you for anybody who's listening or watching this. We appreciate you. We thrive, we survive because of you. Please like, subscribe, tell a friend. All right, now here's a breakdown of what you can expect on today's episode. Hidden Gems Football is broken down into 3 sections. In section 2, we will talk about the upcoming Thursday games, which are Thanksgiving. So we have multiple games. After that, we will go to section 3, which will talk more about Sunday's games and particularly survivor picks, who are our sure things, cannot lose selections for the week. But before we get to that, we have to get to Donnie and his one thing. So Donnie, what's your big thing for the week?
As everybody hopefully knows that's been tuning into us for the last, since its inception a month ago, I am a New York Jets fan. And I try not to just focus on my own team. I try to give a more national view. But unfortunately, part of the national view this week is the ineptness of my Jets. But not the ineptness of the whole overall team, ineptness of one position, one particular player. And that's the quarterback, Zach Wilson. I broke out this t-shirt specifically for this episode. This t-shirt says, all gas, no brakes. This was the motto. This was a slogan that Coach Robert Saleh said at his introductory press conference when he took over the head coaching position of the New York Jets. And throughout the first season and a half, the first season wasn't that successful, but that was, growing pains. This season, he's actually been able to implement this motto, all gas, no brakes. He's been trying to instill a culture, the culture being team first, be accountable, be held accountable for your actions. And that's something that Mr. Zach Wilson refuses to do. This past week, and I'm going to go off the top of my head because I do not have my trusty notes at hand due to the way that I'm recording this. But Zach Wilson was 9 of 21 this past week for a grand total of 73 yards.
It was 77.
Okay, see, I need my trusty notes. But this one is accurate. Total offense only gathered 103 yards. There was a particular stat that during the second half of Sunday's game against the evil empire, the New England Patriots, in the second half, we accounted for 2 yards of total offense for the second half. I think there was even more interesting stat. We averaged 2.88 inches per play. Do you know how that sounds? 2.88 inches per play. Damn near 3 inches per play in the second half. Our defense was balling out. We held New England to 3 points for the whole game. Yes, we lost due to a punt return with 5 seconds remaining. But nevertheless, our defense gave up 3 points. So the gist of what I'm trying to get at here is at the post-game press conference, Zach Wilson was asked, well, being the fact that your offense struggled and you only amassed 3 points for the game, and your defense only gave up 3 points for the game, do you believe that the offense let the defense down? And Zach Wilson said, no, very dismissive. He also indulged in when asked, because on numerous plays, Denzel Mims showed outward frustration over the inaccuracy of Zach Wilson's passes. Garrett Wilson showed frustration over not so much the inaccuracy, but pretty much, dude, do you know what the play? Do you know the play that was called? Because you're throwing an in route when it's clear that Denzel Mims was running a deep post. He says, well, frustration is part of it. Just like I get frustrated when the receivers aren't where they're supposed to be, but that's just part of the growing pains. And that's inadvertently throwing your teammates under the bus when you are the leader. He's the captain. I don't know how he became the captain. If I was anybody in that locker room, as soon as he came back from that podium, I'm hammering him up against the wall and I'm snatching that C off his chest. Because that's not what a leader does. But that showed only his immaturity, but his ego. He used the playing conditions, the windy conditions, as a reason of why he was so inaccurate. He was like, the crosswinds, depending on the direction that we was going, direction of the field that we was going, some of those crosswinds, it was easier to throw to one side of the field than the other. Mac Jones, quarterback of the New England Patriots, was 23 of 27 for over 250 yards. He played in that same win. He was able to amass some type of offense. And once again, this goes back to the flippant way of how he said, no, I don't feel like we let them down. Garrett Wilson, rookie, and I emphasize rookie wide receiver from the Ohio State University. He was asked after the game, and he was very blunt. He was like, this ish is not acceptable at all. He's like, yeah, that's not acceptable. We need to all come together. We need to find out what we need to get better in. Not just assume that everything is okay. Not come into the complex and pretty much fake your way as if you're working hard, but on game day, it's showing that you're severely deficient in your knowledge that needs to implement the game plan. And this is a rookie holding the second-year quarterback accountable. The franchise as a whole, for a good year and a half, Denzel Mims could not see the field, let alone start, because they were trying to instill a culture. And until he was up to snuff, he would not get any playing time. He got up to snuff. Now he's playing. Elijah Moore a couple weeks ago, around the trading deadline, he sent out some cryptic tweets. Pretty much, he expressed his displeasure and his motivation of getting traded. They told him, you're not going nowhere. And guess what? The next game, he was inactive for that game to pretty much set the culture. Zach Wilson, not only, it would be one thing if he stunk it up on the field and then he went to that podium and was like, look, that's not good enough. I'm going to try to do my part to improve. But he did none of that. So if you want to continue this culture that you're instilling, he has to be held accountable since he's not holding himself accountable. Meaning, either this upcoming game against Chicago, he has a very short leash, or he gets benched for this game. And not just second string. No, put him to third string. Let him realize the gravity of his actions this past Sunday, both on and off the field. And that is my one big thing.
It's hard to argue against the point because what he did at the press conference was outrageous. Now, I can understand. I think he's a kid. He came into the league early. I think he was and had to be embarrassed by what happened, that situation there. So I can understand him being a little defensive. But you're, like you said, you're the captain of the team. So you have to accept some of the responsibility, even if you don't want to accept all of it. Actually, as the captain and the quarterback, you should probably accept more responsibility than even it was with you. All right, I'm embarrassed. You asked me if I should be held accountable for the defense or I should apologize to the defense. I go, no. Responsive ego. I get it. You have to follow that up with saying that I do have to handle my business, though. And he didn't do that. Now, I will say a couple of things. Last week, we talked about this game, and I said it might end up being a problem because Belichick does this to young quarterbacks all the time. Not to this degree, and it doesn't explain what he said afterwards, but I'm not surprised he had problems with Belichick. I think it was all a confidence issue that was making him miss obvious, relatively easy passes. He says it's the wind. All right, the wind will change the trajectories of balls. It wasn't the windiest day that's going to be in New York this season. So if it really was the wind, that's going to be a problem. My question to you is, Donnie, a couple of things.
Okay.
One, if they put the backup in and then they win, right? And I'm not saying anybody goes crazy, but they play decently and they win the game. They get a W. Does that mean Zach is out for the season? Does that mean Zach's out for his career? Where do you go with that?
It will all depend on what backup they choose to utilize. Like, everybody knows Joe Flacco has no future in the league. Like, he's pretty much holding on to whatever roster spots they can get and to cash his check. So if they replaced him with Flacco and they win, okay, depending on how he acts inside the complex, how he shows himself on the practice field, pretty much I would say it would be a game to game basis on both how he's able to ingratiate himself back into that locker room. Because right now, from what I've been reading the last 2 days, there are a lot of people, especially on the defensive side, that have big issues with Zach Wilson for the fact of he didn't come in. Whatever you say to the public, that's one thing. But what the locker room should know what's in your heart. And if the locker room is starting to question your character, especially, then that's going to be a problem going forward. And you're not going to be able to, once again, instill the culture that you're in the process of doing. So I really believe for the rest of the season, it should be a week-to-week basis. And then you're going to recalibrate in the offseason of, all right, are we going to go forward with him or are we just going to cut our losses?
All right, fair enough. I think you make some good points. And honestly, at this point, anything that happened to Zach Wilson, that's on Zach Wilson because that was unacceptable, particularly the post game, as bad as the game was. We're going to move on to the second section. The Thanksgiving Day games. Always a fun time. Get to eat, get to watch some good football, hopefully. The first team up is the traditional home team on Thanksgiving, and that is the Buffalo Bills are traveling to Detroit. Well, they're already in Detroit, but they're going to play in Detroit against the Detroit Lions. The Bills are 9.5-point favorites. The total is expected to be 53.5 points. That means Vegas is saying that Buffalo will score 31.5 points and Detroit will score 22. We're doing this a little bit earlier in the week. The one downside to it is we don't have very good injury reports yet. The ones that stuck out to me were that the Bills obviously are worried about Josh Allen's elbow. I think it's pretty safe he's going to play. And on Detroit's side, wide receiver Josh Reynolds looks like he may be out. Donnie, what is your take on the Bills versus the Lions?
I really want to say the Lions here, The Lions, I believe, are on a 3-game winning streak. The Lions' offense has never been a problem. It's been their defense. It's been actually stopping people. I believe, except for a 2-game blip, one of those games being against New England, um, they've really been able to put points up. And part of me wants to believe that due to the displacement of the Bills, being the fact they just played in Detroit because of the blizzard that happened in Buffalo, part of me wants to believe that they might be a little disheveled. It's Thanksgiving week. They're away from their families. They're maybe kind of still worried about what's going on with their families, being the fact they had to travel and leave their families behind to go to Detroit against Cleveland. I want to think that all that in their head is going to make them susceptible for upset. But I just think that Buffalo just has way too much way more talent than Detroit for the upset. So I'm gonna go survivor pick. My survivor pick for this game would be Buffalo. But against the spread, I believe Detroit has a good chance to cover the spread.
All right, interesting take. I think Buffalo is clearly the winner of this game. The fact that they have been in Detroit the week before, I think, is an advantage. Now they don't have to worry about traveling on the short week. I think that's the one thing that usually a home team in Thanksgiving has an advantage of, especially since it's a day game. But Buffalo is going to be there right there all week. Against the point spread, I do think you have one interesting point in that Detroit's offense has been pretty potent. The last 3 games, I think they put up over 32 of them, but they only put up 9 against Green Bay. But Green Bay is a whole nother story. That does put the point spread in jeopardy for me to some degree. I still think that Buffalo might beat the point spread. What I really think is that if I trust Detroit to score at all, then that over-under, I'm going with the over too. So I'm definitely going Buffalo as far as to win. I feel like I can go Buffalo with the points and the over. Like, I just think that Buffalo is going to go off. I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo puts up 40. All right. The second game, we're speeding up a little bit because we've had some technical difficulties. We got to cut into it a little bit. All right. Second game of the week is the New York Giants going to Dallas to play the Cowboys. The Cowboys are 8-point favorites. The total is 44.5 points, which means that Vegas thinks that the Giants will score 18.25 points, while Dallas scores 26.25 points. Important injuries here. Daniel Bellinger, the tight end for the Giants, is still out from his eye injury from week 7. And Micah Parsons has a knee injury and ankle injury. He did not practice on Monday. That's a technicality. Nobody practiced on Monday. It's just how they designate you. But the important thing is he left the game last Sunday. He ended up coming back and playing. I would assume since he came back, he's going to be ready for Thursday. But if Micah Parsons isn't in, it really changed the dynamics of the Dallas defense. Anyway, how do you take this game, Donnie?
If it wasn't for the amount of injuries that the Giants have sustained over the last couple of weeks, I really would have given the Giants a real good shot of the upset. But I think this past Sunday, their wide receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson, if I'm not mistaken, if that's the name, I know he went down with an ACL injury. He's gone for the year. So, they've been depleted at wide receiver since the beginning of the year. Kenny Galladay did actually catch two passes last week. Daniel Jones was passed over 300 yards last week. And you know what that gave them? A loss. So, yeah, I just had to get that in because, I just had to. Anyway, Cowboys, I think the Cowboys going to win. What's the spread on that?
8 points.
8 points. Cowboys would be my survivor pick, and I would be tempted to go against to pick the Giants covering the spread because I believe the Giants are going to try to do pretty much necessity ball control offense with Saquon, and limit the amount of opportunities that Dallas has. So I think that I want to believe that the score is going to be low. And personally, I think Dallas kind of blew their wad this past week, scoring 40 in Minnesota. So coming off a short week, even though it's at home, it due for a letdown. So Dallas for the win. Giants cover the spread.
Yeah. First of all, you're 100% right about Wan'Dale Robinson. He is out for the season. I just missed that when I was looking at the injuries. I almost want to throw last week's results out the window with the Giants because Detroit got out to a big lead, and then the Giants were playing catch up, and that's not how they can play. They have to play. They're right. They have to play ball control. The game has to either be close or they have to be winning, so they could just grind it out. So, like I said, I want to throw last week out, except for one thing that's kind of bothering me. I feel like anytime they play against a team that can pass and score quickly, they're going to have issues like this. So what becomes interesting to me is Dallas that? Is Dallas explosive? They have Dak. So
that could be the reason it's close.
Well, but the thing is, I think if Dallas can click and get up on top, I think this game is going to be, they're going to run them over. Will they do it? I don't know. So, even though this 8-point spread, I wouldn't touch it as far as a survivor at all. This is not a game I'm going to look at, particularly on a short week. If you make me pick something, I think Dallas will win. I don't even like the over-under because it's a little bit too low for me. It seems like 44.5 points. So, I mean, all right, a 24-21 is over. So
yeah,
I'm not touching this game at all. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if the Giants end up pulling it out, and I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Cowboys get up early and then win by 20.
I will add this. I've grown to never underestimate Brian Daboll coming up with a plan, a scheme to keep his team competitive. Like, I personally believe this past Sunday's blowout actually is to their benefit, because if there was anybody in that locker room that was starting to read the press clippings with 7-2, which called we're unbeatable, and not realize that, it's really a collective effort, I believe that game allowed Daboll to really get the focus back on the team, especially this is an in-division opponent, in-division game, and particularly it's still neck and neck. Like, this 7-3 and Dallas is 7-3. It's a pivotal game.
Yeah, you're right. It is a huge game, so it's going to determine a lot in that division. So it's very important for both of them. So they should both be ready to play. All right, the third game on Thursday will be the New England Patriots going to Minnesota. Now, Minnesota's a 3-point favorite. The total is expected to be 42.5, which means that New England would score 19.75, while Minnesota would score 22.75. As far as injuries, New England, Devontae Parker, he's only played one game since October with the knee injury. He is still doubtful. I think he's getting closer to returning, but if it's going to be this week, we don't know. In Minnesota, Irv Smith is out. He has no chance of playing. But of course, they have Hawkinson as their number one tight end at this point. What do you see in this game?
I'm totally biased, so take whatever I say on this game with a grain of salt. I'm going Minnesota. I feel like Minnesota is going to needs to rebound and will rebound over that throttling that they had at the hands of Dallas. And the Patriots, to me, I don't care what their record says, they're not that good. They're not. Their defense is stout. But with the weapons that Minnesota has, and yeah, you could put the Belichick effect, and Kirk Cousins, I believe Kirk Cousins got a stinker out the way this past Sunday. And I don't think he will be as easily manipulated by a Belichick defense as young, immature Zach Wilson was. So I'm going Minnesota all the way.
I tend to lean with you as far as Minnesota having an advantage. And like I was trying to say that the Giants game, maybe I'm going to throw that out. That Dallas game was just a whooping. And I still don't fully understand what happened there, how Minnesota just fell apart. But I would think that they would be ready to rebound. The one thing that it causes me a little bit of tension there is because Dallas ran Minnesota over. Like, I understand Pollard's a good running back, and Zeke Elliott has always been a top-notch runner himself, but they got destroyed. Like, their defensive line was getting destroyed by Dallas's offensive line. I wonder if Mr. Belichick can figure out a way for that ground attack to just run over Minnesota. I feel like there is an opportunity there. With that said, 3-point spread, I lean Minnesota anyway, so I think I would still lean Minnesota. I probably would leave this bet alone too, because I'm always nervous betting against Belichick. All right, I have one quick question about these 3 games.
Okay.
Would you use any of these games in a survivor pick, or are you a little bit worried, not only because of the closeness of the game, but all because these games are on a short schedule and unusual times, considering that it's only 3 days in between? Does that cause you any apprehension to take Buffalo or a Dallas or Minnesota?
Yeah. Like we've talked in the past, the Thursday night, usually it's the Thursday night games, but pretty much the Thursday games in general, coming off a short week, is always players just always a little off. The underdog usually is able to stay in the game a little longer until talent ultimately prevails. So I would actually stay away from these 3 games. Plus, there's better games on the slate that you could probably get a definite win than these 3 games. To me, these 3 games are kind of toss-ups. Even the Giants even the Bills and Lions, for the reasons I just explained. So I would stay away.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. All right, now we're going to go to the survivor picks.
Recognize this face, acknowledging greatness. On a different level, it's the face of the faceless.
If I get this up, what I do with the stress, without an outlet to vent, proclaim I'm the best in the world of what the you remember the rest. I got a keyboard and shit pent up in my chest. I guess that's probably where I keep it. Spare the whole world, no longer teaching, no longer reaching for perceived perfection. Need more consistency for prolonged erections. I finally found direction, discover what I'm best at. Shooting at every perceived light, yeah, clap back or clap first. Foot on the pedal, grease the bass. I'ma exit now, I'm to recognize this place, recognize this face, acknowledge my greatness. On a different level, it's the face of the faceless. Recognize this face, acknowledge my greatness. On a different level, it's the face of the faceless.
Recognize this face, acknowledge my greatness. On a different level, it's the face of the faceless.
These are the ones that we feel cannot lose this week. And hopefully Donnie will have a little bit of an upset here, but we'll see. All right. Before we get into the actual picks, I want to point out last week, I'm in 2 survivor pick leagues. They both went about the same way. About 4 to 4.5% were eliminated in each league, which is a very small amount, but that's mostly because all the heavy favorites won. Out of that 4.5%, the losing teams were made up mostly of these 3 squads: Denver's loss, Green Bay's loss, and the Giants' loss. The Giants' loss being the only one that was really a true upset because Detroit whooped them. Interestingly enough, about 60% of ownership went towards Baltimore against Carolina. Baltimore won. They won kind of ugly. But if they had lost, a whole lot of people would have been out, and I would have been sitting pretty. But it is what it is. All right. So, Donnie, since we had to spend so much time on the Thursday games and we're slightly limited because somebody's malfunctions, we're going to run through the next 3 games, and you tell me if there's 1 or 2 that catch your attention, okay?
Okay.
All right. So we have the Houston Texans going to Miami to play the Dolphins. The Dolphins are 13-point favorites. Then we have the Los Angeles Rams going to Kansas City to play the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 15-point favorites. But I have to mention that Stafford is being evaluated for a concussion, and it's very possible he will not be playing next week. The other biggest spread we have is the Green Bay Packers versus the Philadelphia Eagles. This one is a modest 7 points. Now, out of those 3 games, first of all, would you take any of these survivors? And secondly, which of these games catch your attention?
Well, I would definitely jump on the Kansas City Rams game. Like you said, Stafford is being evaluated for concussion. He's in a concussion protocol. They're already down Cooper Kupp, I believe. So where are they getting the offense to even compete? And they're 3-7. So pretty much, I'm pretty sure they done cashed out for the season. So to me, that would be the gimme out of the 3 that you discussed. The Miami versus the Texans, Miami hasn't really blown anybody out. I believe their first blowout was this past Sunday. This past Sunday that they pretty much won by like 20 points, 20 plus points. But they haven't been blowing anybody out. So otherwise, I would go Kansas City out of those 3 because I just think that's a gimme. Point spread wise, I wouldn't touch that Kansas City game. 15 points, no matter what. Kansas City sometimes takes their foot off the pedal, so you can see them like a garbage touchdown later on that might cut into that spread. But as for survival wise, Kansas City.
Yeah, I think I'm with you in that Kansas City and Miami, they have the biggest spreads. They're at home. To me, they are the survivor plays of this week out of all the games. With that said, I don't think I'm very happy with this spread. Like I would not feel comfortable taking Miami at 13 points. I think they're going to win, but they could win by 10 and you lose the bet. And I can easily see that happening. And Kansas City by 15 is like, you really have to think that the Rams aren't going to score at all, because as good as the Chiefs have been, they're not overwhelming teams like they have in years past. They have their moments that they go in spurts and then they look really good and then they kind of look okay. Either way, they find ways to win, but 15 points, that's a huge spread. So yes, I would be Miami, Chiefs as far as survivor. I'm not touching either one of those as far as the spread. Actually, I would be tempted to lean on Houston as far as the spread. All right.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. Now, I guess real quickly, we'll run off a couple other games, and you just tell me if any of these strike your interest at all.
Okay.
All right, Donnie. We have a few games that are in the 4.5 point spread. And in the Monday night game, I do want to mention that one too. So I'm going to rattle through this list and you tell me if there's any of them that catch your interest. Okay.
Okay.
All right. We have the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to Washington. Washington is a 4-point favorite. We have the Chicago Bears traveling to New York to play Zach or whoever else is at quarterback. The Jets are 4.5 point favorites.
Really?
Yes, really. We have the Ravens going to Jacksonville. The Ravens are 4-point favorites. We have the Chargers going to Arizona. The Chargers are 4.5 point favorites. We have the Raiders going to Seattle. Seattle's 4-point favorites. And the last game I want to mention, Monday night, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers going to the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are 2.5 point favorites. Now, I know I rattled off a bunch of them. Did any of them catch your attention?
The Colts and the Steelers. I'm glad you brought that one up. I believe the Colts have vastly improved since Jeff Saturday's taken over. I just think they're more competitive. That's the best way I could say it. Steelers, once again, Tomlin is going to play you tough. But I can see the Colts squeezing that one out. So if anything, I would go money line on that one. I wouldn't really go with the point spread. What was there was another one off the top. the Broncos and the Panthers, that's a stink bowl. But dare I say, I would go with the Panthers. Because even though Denver is the more talented team, like I said, they're just it's that they have to be the most disappointing team in the league this year because of the expectations that they have with Russell Wilson, and now they're 3-7, and pretty much the season is over. And they're on the road, so I could see Carolina actually getting the upset there, and I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Well, I don't think I would touch that Denver Carolina game because, like you said, they're both horrible, and Denver's supposed to have more talent, so they should win. But who knows? And Baker Mayfield is horrendous. All right. I want to go back to that Steelers Colts game because I agree with you that the Colts are looking a lot better. I think a big deal that is actually not the coaching change as much as it is the quarterback change.
But, yeah.
Ryan had them competitive. They just kept losing. Now they're competitive again. They're playing against the Steelers. The Steelers have looked awful. But as you point out, Tomlin, the other thing is that if you remember last week, I was like, I'm not convinced about this offense being able to do anything. They just put up another 30 points in a losing effort. I'm not completely convinced that their offense has turned around at all, but I don't think the Colts are necessarily a good team. That's another game I would not touch because I could see either team in that winning. The real one that caught my attention as far as all these games is I think I'm starting to believe in Washington a little bit. And the fact that they're playing against the Falcons at home, I just think if I was going to go with any of those games, I would actually go with the Commanders.
Really? You're a Heineken believer, huh?
I think Heineke is doing enough that he knows how to win. He knows how to do things at the end of the game to make sure that they have their best chance. I don't think he's a great quarterback by any means, but I also think that Washington actually has some talent on the outside. And now that they have a quarterback playing decently, those guys are actually showing that they can do some things, they're wide receivers and tight ends. So that is the reason I think that they're able to win against a team like the Falcons at home. I think that they should be able to pull it out. So like that 4 points, I probably would go Washington with the points. With that said, I'm not touching any of them in Survivor because I'm going with those big spreads that we talked about earlier. All right.
KC.
Huh? Say what?
I know. I said KC. Definitely KC.
Yep. Right. KC or Miami. And, I would just roll with one of them and not worry about it. All right. We're wrapping this up. Donnie, I'm kicking it to you. You don't have any notes. Let's see what you got to say this week.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to wish each and every one of y'all a very happy Thanksgiving, a very happy Turkey Day. The holiday season is or can be a very trying and troubling time for individuals, especially if you suffered a loss in the family, a loss of friendship, a loss of a friend. And there's times that, the holiday season, should be festive, but we do need to keep in mind that there are people who are, this time of year gets them in a depressed mood, So I just want to put that out there. Secondly, you can check out the Salty Thoughts of Donnie Oooh podcast. Yes, I'm back from my self-imposed hiatus, self-imposed sabbatical, whatever, on multiple streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple, Anchor.fm, and Good Pods. See, I didn't forget this time. And Black Friday is coming, and I would enjoy your patronage. So you can check out my debut EP, The Elders, with producer extraordinaire Jay Furman on the Bandcamp app or bandcamp.com. The stream, or you can cop, is $7. Support your Donnie Oooh. It'd be much appreciated. And I think that's really all I have to say.
All right. I don't have much to say. Hidden Gems Golf. We have one event next month, so you can check me out there. Hip Hop Hidden Gems. I'm actually working on editing the new episode. So it's somebody that has multiple talents.
Okay.
they're a rapper who did other things.
Yeah, I'm
in
trying to
music.
get it out of him, guys. I'm trying to
Right.
get it out of him, but it's not going to work.
You will have to check out the next episode of Hip Hop Hidden Gems to know who I'm talking about.
Definitely.
That's all I got. So let's sign us off.
All right. Well, this has been a very eventful episode. Hidden Gem Football is a podcast.
Bye-bye. Buy Donnie's album. He needs a new laptop.
This is a 19 Media Group presentation.
No, this is my phone.
Oh my goodness. You know
This
what?
is my phone.
I gotta say, your coloring is better.
Yeah, my phone has the best camera on all of them. This is ridiculous. I've never had problems like this.
This has been quite amusing. Luckily for me, I decided to start recording a little while ago.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I can see it 3 minutes up.
I've been having a lot of fun these last 3 minutes. I'll tell you.
Oh, I've heard a lot. You just couldn't hear me, but I heard a lot. I was in the atmosphere, just hovering around. I'm hearing voices. I'm seeing visions, but nobody can see me. It was almost like I was a freaking vampire.
Oh man, you know what? All the hassle, it was worth it. Just for for the comedy, man. I was enjoying myself there.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. I was going through a nervous breakdown over here. I got 3 laptops right now. I got one on top of another, and I'm in there using my phone. This is great. This is ridiculous. This is nuts. I swear. I hope the listeners and the watchers realize what we go through to give them the content that they need.